Todd, are you shaking your head?
All right, so this is Todd Atkins, and I'm here with Mike Davis, the MMA detective, and Miguel Iturrate of the Lights Out podcast. Be sure to check out their podcast on YouTube, Lights Out Podcast. And today we're going to discuss the recent incident with involving Dana White and his wife in Cabo. So I think I'll let Mike go ahead.
All right. So we're going to do a little MMA math because I know Miguel's going to take this thing in a direction that I'm not able to. So I'm going to kind of keep it where I know what's happening. So let's do the MMA math. Let's just pretend Dana White steps down, which is something that he's fired people for. Like he's fired employees of his in the office and in the cage for this very thing. Let's see who or steps down, suspended, anything. Let's look at the list of people that would take his place. You got the attorney, Hunter Campbell, who's helped the transition, from SEG to Zuffa, been around forever. You've got his, one of his assistants. You've got Reed Harris, who's an advisor to Dana, who headed up the WEC. You've got Mick Maynard, who had his own promotion. I think he's part owner of the LFA. He's a matchmaker. And you got Sean Shelby, who matchmade for the WEC with Reed Harris. And now, he's with the UFC, matchmaking with Mick Maynard. So you got two matchmakers, an advisor, and an attorney. This is my depth chart. There might be other people on it that should be on it. I'm just going from what I believe are the people that are positioning for that spot. Hunter Campbell, Todd Atkins, recently, I think he blocked you on social media. Do you care to tell people why?
No, that was Hunter. That was Campbell McLaren, the CEO of Mbate.
Campbell McLaren. Okay, fair enough. Okay. That guy's pretending that he invented the UFC or something, which we all know our Davey did.
Right.
Couldn't be further from the truth. Hunter Campbell's a go-getter. Let's just say Dana White says, hey, man, I'm stepping down for about 6-9 months, taking my suspension, checking myself into some sort of rehab that caters to celebrities. I'm coming back. Hunter Campbell might not step down. He might keep that spot. You've got Reed Harris. Reed Harris would acquiesce, keep the chair warm, allow Dana to have it. Sean Shelby and Mick Maynard, if one of those two take it, you have to assume the LFA, the premier theater show for the UFC, their matchmaker, Mark Berry, switches over there. So I think people right now are positioning for power, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens. For Dana White, it's good and bad. The good is, the bad is, obviously he's in the hot seat. The good is he actually understands who his real friends are. I mean, without a question of a doubt, everybody's revealed their true colors about the guy. Todd, as much as we like to rag on the UFC and stuff, I've never badmouthed the guy. I actually do respect him. I wish the fighters would get paid more. I wish a lot of things, but I truly do respect him. I think it's Game of Thrones right now that's happening. You got a publicly traded company, and everybody's positioning for Dana's spot, but not many people could fill it. There's an education level that is needed for that spot that not many people have, and it can't be taught. Either you have it or you don't. And it takes hundreds of events, promoting events and being around it in order to understand it, not just pushing legal work. So, Miguel?
Here's the situation. All the names I was just sitting on Instagram double checking. So there are no verified accounts under Sean Shelby, Hunter McLaren, or Reed Harris, or any of those. There's a few, variations of the names. Some people may be fakes. A couple of them have, 700 followers. And you're talking about one of those guys stepping up to replace a guy with 8 million Instagram followers. So there's nothing that you can do in this situation, there will be a gap in terms of fame, name recognition, just ability to impact when Dana steps aside. And that's coming at some point, one way or another. I do think that this would be the right time for it to happen. And this is basically because there's a lot of chaos around the UFC, and most of it is around Dana's forceful ability to handle the thing, with an iron fist kind of thing. But there are chinks in the armor there with, Brock Lesnar's steroid use, and letting the fight go through. And, Dana being forgiven for certain faux pas like this in the past, So, that chaos prevents a lot of systems. I believe in the rules. If you make rules, you should follow them. And Dana, this is a rule that Dana said, is you don't hit women. So now he's broken the rule, and there should be some kind of, I know his wife forgave him and stuff like that. That all comes with politics anyway. The point is she shouldn't have to forgive him. He should never have done it, especially never have done it in front of the cameras like a dumbass, because he's always seemed smarter than that. When he talked badly and very insultingly and very lowbrow about Cyborg, that comes to mind as another time where a community could have gotten together and rallied against him, and it didn't happen. And maybe they're not strong enough. But in this case, very seriously, what would happen if, a couple of the women fighters got together and made a press conference and said, yeah, I don't think I can work with that guy anymore. It could turn into a very, very serious problem, but that would have to be initiated by the actual fighters. How do they feel about it? You can't have 100% people voting for him. So now like Mike said, he's finding out who his enemies are. Now, how many, what if Cyborg is right now making phone calls and finds 20 former and current, maybe some current fighters who all would say, I don't want to work with this guy. Very similar to, what happens with, there's so many variations of negative stories, but there have been other situations.
Can I give you one? Can I give you one?
I was thinking of the scandals where, the
Miguel Torres
abused, and Miguel Torres is another one. I was thinking of the scandals in sports where the doctors have abused the athletes and stuff. It's been kept quiet and stuff, and all of a sudden the doctors have a big fall from grace when it becomes public. If Dana has been offensive and stuff like that, maybe it's now time to pay the piper. The thing is he's the man who made the rule, you don't hit women. And that, made that rule, but he made it in this sport. He put it very clearly, and he holds his athletes to that. That's it. He does not get an exemption, or does he? If everybody says, oh, it's okay when Dana does it, then
can I give you an example?
That's not how to handle these things.
I can give you an example of when it is okay. And I shouldn't say when it is, because it's never okay, but when enough time passes where people forgive him. Look at John Jones. This guy beat his wife in front of his children. Not a single person is mentioning that now. They're all talking about, when's he finally going to fight? When's he finally going to fight?
And his wife also came and forgave him, so that's the formula that's being followed here.
Well, she also left.
With Dana in his position, there's also some expectation, and he's always carried himself forcefully, right? But this is just force. It reminds me also of another big sports scandal when the owner of the Clippers, who was an older guy, loaded with money, and he used the N-word. Yeah. He used the N-word a few times, too many, to the point where, the basketball team actually said, hey, look, he's got to sell the team. We can't work with this guy. So that's the real danger Dana has put himself in. What if women athletes came forward and said, he crossed the line that we cannot forgive? What, Dana, 10 years ago, Dana might have just canceled the women's division. But like you said, now he answers to a different bit of a audience. 8 million followers. He's transcending into that level of being somebody that people, that's why some people are willing to forgive him, because he's got that celebrity status. It's okay when Dana hits his wife. That's what people say. If you say he should keep his job and that sort of stuff, then you're saying it's okay for Dana to hit his wife, but not everybody else.
Okay, so let's kind of go back just a little bit. I mentioned Miguel Torres's name. Miguel Torres was fired for an off-color joke involving women and rape. He gets fired, and he made it like on Twitter or I don't know, or maybe Instagram. He gets fired, and his response is, well, I'm actually repeating a joke that I saw on a TV show on Fox, the very network that carries your program. And Dana, he just didn't care. Just, out of here. Didn't care. Just one little something about a rape fan or something like that. And Miguel's entire career after that changed.
Like I said, there's a rule that Dana's been very forceful about in many different situations. With John Jones, John got to buy, but he's been getting a buy all the time. But there are a lot of fighters who get, even now, at the level of the underground shows or the smaller shows that are on Fight Pass. Even those matchmakers are now leery of guys who might have, charges in the domestic battery scene or things like that, and have refused signing people, even at the Fight Pass level. Those guys, they know, have no hope of getting to the UFC. Why? Because the precedents are set. So now this is what Dana's going to say with his forgiveness, is he's saying, you guys are going to forgive me for breaking my own rule.
Well, let's talk about Rumble Johnson. Let's talk about Rumble Johnson. Rumble Johnson got let go, went through like a little rehab thing, came back, and then for an undisclosed reason was let go again. And Dana's response is, you go ask Rumble why he's no longer working with us. Like, he pretty much just said it happened again. I know Rumble's gone. It is what it is, but that's reality. Now, if you guys can bring it back to when COVID hit, the actual event, like that first UFC event, Dana canceled, and he had the head of Disney and ESPN call him demanding that he cancel the event. One of the reporters is just, well, what does your boss say? And Dana laughed at him. He laughed at the reporter and said, yeah, I don't have a boss. I make decisions because that's what I do, but I don't have a boss. Well, I'll tell you what, we're about to find that out. Like, whether that's real or not, we're going to find out, because the guy's worked so hard to get to his position. And look what the UFC is right now. It's international. Some people say, oh, he's stunted the growth. Dana White has not stunted the growth of the UFC. He's made it what it is, a worldwide phenomenon.
So are we talking in essence that you guys think he actually is going to be disciplined in this instance?
He has to be disciplined. It's just to what degree. If he holds himself up to the same rule he's held up all of the fighters in the past, he's got to go sit down for a minute.
Yeah, I think he could. I think he could suffer very little repercussions depending on when Zuffa sold that. He was already eking into the 9 figures of money territory. You don't get that and keep that going by not lawyering up and being really, really, smart. So there has to be a transitional contract for how the new company handles his services, and he may indeed have a lot of power and contractually built in to what he does, which is why he can still say stuff like that. But at the end of the day, things that he's been there under this company now for several years, he can't, like I always say, you can't have 100% of the people voting for you. So there have to be people in the new corporation, like you said, who fancy themselves better at it, or fancy that it might be better without him, or just at least move in different directions. So I don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if he still has. He's smart enough that when that transition occurred, his contract protects him to a certain extent. How much that is we may even find out in this case if they try to move against him. But I wouldn't be surprised if all we get is the final statement. This is what's funny to me. When you're he's 50 something at this point, right? It's like, shouldn't you not be drinking? And then the public statement is like, me and my wife want you to think of my family and the kids. at a time like this. It's like you're out partying in Cabo, getting drunk. There's no family New Year's or partying going on like that. Like a lot of families get together for that when they really care about family, but he's still living the lifestyle. So I don't think he wants to let that go.
Tad, let me ask you one other question. What happens if they brought over Scott Coker?
I'm sorry, what did you say?
What would you think if Scott Coker's name got thrown into the mix to come over and head up the UFC?
I don't know. I mean, it would be I think it would raise people's alert, in the community, because it'd be like they'd probably be pretty shocked that his name was thrown in.
We've always, this is the conspiracy hour. We've always had like a theory that Coker has been working for the UFC forever. Like he never really left working with them after the Strikeforce acquisition.
I mean, it's always possible. Now, one thing that I want to touch on that Miguel said, and it seems like the UFC doesn't have some things tightened up. We have this gambling thing that they should have been out in front of. And now
Chaos.
you got Dana White making a fool of himself in public. It seems like they don't have some things buttoned up.
Well, with the James Krause situation, first and foremost, my belief is that James is not involved. Whatever anybody else, Minner, Molina, all those other names, I don't know. My personal belief is that he's not involved based on him, turning over everything to the FBI. Like he's absolutely, being open with them, and he's not obstructing any of their wants. So with Krause, that actually might come to bite Dana in the butt as well, because he had a gambling show on UFC Fight Pass. The UFC paid him to have a gambling show, and now he's in trouble for gambling. So, granted, there's some other things involved. But Krause is another person that's in the crosshairs that will get brought up. Like in terms of poor decision making, let's talk about another one. Like you're not always going to hit. You try to hit more than you miss. But let's talk about the Colby Covington situation. Colby Covington was out with the Nelk Boys. The Nelk Boys, my belief, based on everything that I've all of the stuff that's been gathered and put into in the public, my belief is they were setting up some sort of YouTube stunt that went awry, that Dana absolutely would have been informed of, that it was in probably real time. So that's why Colby Covington, no more bad suits, no more public persona. That guy's about to make a shitload of money, and it's based on a whole bunch of poor decision making. Now let's talk about another thing recently with Dana. Wasn't there an FBI investigation in regards to a blackmail accusation with him as well within the last 2 years? Todd, you want to open up about that?
Yeah, wasn't that involving like a woman or something? Where he had they had video of him, and I guess they tried to extort him.
It was from what I understand, it was a ring card girl and her boyfriend that were trying to blackmail him. And rather than him paying the money, he just called the FBI. So Dana's relationship in regards to like family and stuff, dude, I totally understand. There's a lot of swingers in this sport. Miguel and I talk about it privately behind, the scenes about who we know is kind of in that game. Not accusing him of being in that world, but he didn't flinch. He dealt with that head up, went right to the feds, and I think he even held a press conference in regards to it. Didn't care. Didn't stop him at all. Didn't flinch.
Yeah, it seems like he's kind of a Teflon to anything that happens.
Yeah.
For sure.
You guys think this might be different?
No, I don't. I think it should be, but I think at the end of the day, in 3 years, he probably will still be at the helm of the UFC.
Here, Todd. And this is for everybody that's sitting on the couch yelling at us about our opinions. To pretend that James Krause, to pretend that Dana White aren't resilient and they're not coming back from this in some sort of fashion, you're out of your mind. Like, to burn that bridge now, man, not a good move in regards to chess playing. Especially if you like the guy. I don't know. I'm not going to dump on Dana. I haven't up until this point. Has he made some bad decisions? Yeah. Has he made some groundbreaking decisions that put this sport in the next stratosphere, which is why the three of us even know each other? Absolutely. Absolutely. I'm not going to dump on him. I really do hope, the best for him and his family. Whatever issues they have, I hope it gets ironed out. In regards to his position with the UFC, my opinion is that there needs to be a bump in that road. I don't know for how long. I don't know how severe, but there has to be something there.
I mean, it would make sense because if they're thinking into the future, they could say now we can, maybe set him aside and work the next guy that we hope would take over anyway, in a few years.
Well, slap fighting. Look at slap fighting. It got taken off the TBS schedule.
Yeah, there's yet another chink in this guy's armor. He's been, Teflon Dana for 20-something years, but the slap fighting thing really hit people like he doesn't need the money. Like, can he really be that passionate like he was about UFC, about that? Or is it really just, about earning more money at this point? And there's no passion in there or no care anymore for, the good of the sport and that kind of altruistic stance that he took with the UFC sometimes. Now, Power Slap to me was so lowbrow, and then he slaps his wife. He can't possibly still think that they're going to air that, do they? Like I said, the commercials and the memes of him slapping his wife for a Power Slap commercial are out there already. You know what I mean? So, I think that was a poor judgment, and it turned out to be worse when you look at the way it went down. So whatever money he's put into that, he lost. He actually doesn't look
50 grand. He lost 50 grand.
He probably does that every couple of weekends. Does he? I wonder if he bets on the fight. Just curious. But anyway, but that's the point.
I bet you he does. He bets on boxing.
You know what I mean? So here's the deal: is it doesn't seem that much money to him, or he seems to play with these other things. But if you're going to have rules, they need to be enforced. Or else let's not have rules. Who cares?
It's not rules for thee.
Get mule hormone and shoot it into the back of your eyeball if you want. We're not going to, if there's no steroid rules, that's what we can do. But there are rules, so that's why we enforce them. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If not, take them away so we can hit women. No, that's a golden rule in society. So he's saying, yeah, forgive me.
Well, here, let's backtrack even further. The reason that there was no WMMA for a while was, the talent pool isn't that deep, and I don't like watching women punch each other or any violence towards women, period, which I can actually understand. Watching a woman punch another, like a woman getting punched, no matter who's on the other side, is pretty unsettling. Like, I do color commentary. It's not easy in my opinion, it's not easy for me to watch, even though I do enjoy it. I enjoy the art and stuff like that.
It's where I think the sport, that's his biggest danger right now, is that his title holder and Cyborg are talking, and they come out and do a dual press conference and say, no, we can't work with him. Because that's really the only thing that could kill him in that fashion is that the women, like Mike said from the very beginning, I don't know that his treatment of the women is something that he can count on them being 100% behind him. Keep in mind, he quashed entire divisions at will, which really stunts growth. People fighting out of divisions, trying to make a living, not under perfect circumstances and things like that, all because of his ego. There could be women with enough built up anger against him that they should come out now. If they did, they could be the changing point. If not, I don't think anything changes. But that's his one real risk. I think it's a very real risk. I think the women may just keep it quiet, but if enough of them talk and enough of them agree, he could be in real trouble.
I think he's in real trouble now. Yeah. Yeah, but rules for thee, rules for me. You can't have both.
I think he's done that for a long time though, and because he doesn't have a boss, because he has been the arbiter for other people, and because he's avoided. But after 20 years, we've listed a bunch of incidents that off the top of our heads that we can remember. So he hasn't been perfect. So he's counted on his 8 million followers to come up and be like, Dana, it's okay, no one's gonna fire him, and he gets, like I said, you can't have everybody like you. You can't have everybody hate you either. He's got vast followers that drink the Kool-Aid and they say that this is going to be okay. Those people are wrong. There's no circumstances that's okay to hit a woman. It was New Year's Eve. We were drunk. Okay, it's still wrong. So,
Miguel, look, okay. So obviously for those that you don't know, Miguel was in charge of Bodog, worked for ADCC at the very beginnings. Like, he's been around a lot of circles. The one thing, Miguel, that you and I used to always mention was that Dana never drank. That guy was sober for about 15, 20 years. Like, him mentioning that alcohol was involved was part of the most shocking part of that episode. Like, I've never hung out with Dana. I've never met him. We've never even crossed each other's paths going one way or the other. But the one consistent thing that I've always heard about him, he doesn't drink.
Well, he's a whiskey salesman now, so.
And Howler Monkey, yeah.
Yeah, things change. A lot of celebrities might get away with this by going to a rehab. And again, he hadn't even taken that step in terms of, I haven't drank. And now that I dabble in it, obviously I can't control myself. If I'm hitting women, he closed that circle pretty fast. So that could have been another excuse, but again, that's a little bit against his ego. So I think his ego's still operating, and he's still. And I think that the most deep-seated, the best comparison I have for Dana is Bob Arum. That if you let Dana get his way, Dana will be 85 years old at the helm of the UFC. He will be something he does till the day he dies. I think that's the way it is in his blood. It's the most important thing. Something big like this could be may alter that, but then he'll go away like Donald Sterling. I don't think Donald Sterling wanted to sell the Clippers, but he'll go away a little bit bitter, but he's still going to go away with $500 million, they say. So, but to take away his real want, which is to do this till the day he dies and be a promoter for 60 years, that's what's at risk. And I think that would hurt him. That would hurt him.
Yeah. Todd, next topic.
All right. So again, for Todd Atkins, Miguel Iterati, the MMA detective Mike Davis, signing off for this episode. Until next time, take care.